Oh,
It's recording.
okay.
Hello, my name is Tyrone Alexander Dew. I'm actually the author of Satellite Directed Energy Weaponry Terrorism, Illuminati Got Me. It's a book that covers 30 years of experiences of being a targeted individual with the voice to skull and all the other extreme low frequency wave weaponry that the government has created. If you've probably heard about Aaron Alexis, the Washington Naval Yard shooter, he complained about this technology being used against him. I published this a month before the actual incident. This was my suicide note. And if it wasn't for him doing what he did, my family and friends would probably still think that I'm crazy. I do not condone going out committing mass violence. And recently, there was the Florida State shooter, Myron May. His suicide note mirrors the experiences in my book. Today, I have someone very special that I get to meet, Dr. Robert Duncan. He actually helped create the technology several years ago. I'm not sure, how much he's going to speak about what the technology does and what it can do, but for me, this is kind of like meeting, your grand all actor celebrity, This is the only person in my life that can explain that I'm not mentally ill, the Aaron Alexis wasn't mentally ill, the Miriam Carey, who was hearing Obama's voice, which is voice cloning technology, and believed that she was under electronic surveillance, the Myron May, who actually was an assistant trial attorney in New Mexico, a young black man who had a very promising career, who quit his job, went to Florida, where he grew up at, went to Florida State, shot 3 people in front of the Strozier Library. It's one of those things where, if you want to hide something from people, what's the best place to hide it? In a book. There's several books written about this, not very many talking about experiences of a targeted individual for 30 years and how the technology works. Dr. Duncan actually wrote a book in 2008?
10. Well, it was written in probably 2008, Project Soul Catcher. But I've written other books, and my name wasn't even supposed to be on one of them. But yeah, I've been trying to expose this since 2002, I would say. So I've been in the field for over a decade and just trying to expose these technologies, but they've existed much before me and when I worked on them. I can find targeted individuals as far as, you're one of the oldest ones, from 1976 there seemed to be a large increase in targeted individuals using this technology. And then again, every time the military gets a bigger budget, there seems to be more TIs involved. And then, of course, after 9/11, there was a whole bunch of TIs that were brought into the program. And they're trying to improve on this weapon technology, and they need sample points. And nobody likes to hear they were randomly chosen for a torture program. And, as we found out, we don't even actually define torture as torture. It's called enhanced interrogation. So their legal system, the government's legal system, is just mincing words, and they're literally trying to define torture as nothing. I mean, anything you do to a human being is not torture. It's really, it is insane what our government is doing. And so I'm here to validate that you are a real TI and that this is happening to at least 2,000 people in the United States.
Wow, at least 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Now, if you can explain to the people what we're complaining about. A lot of us are complaining about not just hearing voices, but the pain. But could you explain how we're capable of hearing voices in our head that other people can't hear?
Yeah. Yes, and this is very complex, and there are actually several technologies. There are at least 4 different technologies that can pipe voices into the human head that only that person will hear. But the one that is most complicated has to do with EEG heterodyning and remapping the audio cortex of the human brain that is subjected to it. But to feel physical pain, it's, again, a mapping, a cloning, if you will, of another person's brainwaves onto yours. And people want to know the details, and I can't get into the details. Biophysics and physics, kind of bores people, the mathematics of it. But you asked a good question. So they can control my emotions.
Yes.
How do they do that? Well, if you put a person under a functional MRI, which most people know about that technology, you can see the points of the brain that light up and classify each emotional state. You can tell that person is an alcoholic, or that person is schizophrenic, or that person feels pleasure or pain, happiness, sadness, and etc. throughout all the emotions. Now, what people don't know is you can induce those sets, it's called an emotional signal cluster, onto other human beings. So literally copying what another person is feeling and those emotions onto you.
So, are they capable of having these emotions cloned onto a computer and then inflicting decibel levels of frequency waves onto humans to make them feel these particular emotions? Because for me, I mean, there are times when I feel like, I can be very strong, I can be angry, I can be upset, I can be sad, I can be happy. I mean, there are times when, for instance, my ex-fiance and I, when we were together, there were plenty of times when I felt these vibrations going through my body. And the next thing you know, I'm extremely angry. I mean, we're fighting. I mean, I'm physically fighting with her, and I have no control over what's being did to me. All I can tell her is that, look, babe, I'm sorry. That wasn't me. I love you. Is that me feeling someone else's emotions, or have they finally figured out the perfect decibel level of frequency waves to inflict on me? And if so, where are they inflicting these frequency waves? Is it in my brain? Is it in my nervous system? Is it, where do they inflict this at?
It's a good question, and it's actually more complicated than you make it. You're having both natural emotions that are tied in with the unnatural emotions that they're injecting into you. And they can amplify whatever emotion you are already feeling. And so it's not as simple as saying, I'm being fully controlled, because only in certain settings can you have a complete cloning of another person's mind. Usually it's a mixture, and so it's called heterodyning, which means mixing of brain signals, not cloning. But so I can't talk about your particular situation because I don't know.
Yeah, you weren't there.
I weren't there.
And you wasn't the person who was doing it to.
Yeah,
So
that's right. I assure you of that.
So you can't. Yeah, I understand that. So there's also the not being able to hear. Like sometimes I have conversations with people and I can't hear what you're saying. How do they just immediately shut off my hearing?
Well, they do have control of the five senses. Remember, your brain, your entire self of sense is derived from your input signals. And, we say taste, smell, touch, hearing, eyesight, and they can control quite a bit of that. They can dampen your hearing, they can dampen your vision, make you see double vision, they can erase your memory, short-term memory, and these have been examples of what MK Ultra, ultimately the mind control programs that were exposed in the 1970s, are trying to do, is to control a human being. And so they're testing these on you. You happen to be a project, and I'm sorry for that, but you are a project.
Yeah, I appreciate the apology. At least one person has apologized for this. I mean, I don't think I'll ever get it again from anyone else. When you speak of the forest being able to see certain things and making you see double vision, as a child, I wrote in my book how they were able to force me to see certain neural images, I guess, of like things that would be on TV. How the hell are they turning my mind into a television?
Yeah, so that's called the visual workspace of the human brain. It's sort of our imagination. We can visualize stuff, and some people call it the third eye, and the language changes, but by mapping the visual cortex, which the human brain, most of it is dedicated to vision, they can transmit visual perception into you, which sometimes that can overpower your two eyes, and it will seem more real, like a hologram, than even what you're seeing visually. And so it's a powerful technology, and your brain only knows what the modulated signal is being piped into it. So this is how mind control works, is your brain is being modulated at each subsection, macro circuit, sub-circuit, etc., that they are sending your brain information which does not depend on our physical reality.
So what you're saying is that the brain works as like a, for everyone else who probably doesn't understand this, because for me, hey, if it didn't happen to me, I possibly wouldn't understand this either. So the brain is kind of like a circuit board, and these people have found a way. When we say these people or they, we're referring to whoever's in control of satellite-directed energy weaponry technology. Am I correct?
I'm a little hesitant saying it's all satellite-based.
Really?
And the reason I say that is, HARP was built in 1991. It's a phased array. It has a lot of the capabilities. There are at least 20 of these phased arrays around the world. And the first person that I could track back, assuming it was a real TI, was 1962. And that person wrote a book. And, there weren't many TIs back then, but it sounded like a real TI. We didn't have satellites back then.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're saying...
So I'm saying it's an integrated, multimodal system, and the satellites may be a backup for the ground-based systems.
So when I'm in the sky, or the ground-based systems, am I able to hear the person speaking to me through ground-based systems, even when I'm in an airplane?
Yeah, of course you would. A lot of these ground-based systems, they're called over-the-horizon radar, and it means anything below the ionospheric level, which is out there. It's the signal will bounce off, and so it allows you to look over the Earth to the other side. And we use this to look for nuclear weapons being launched from Russia on China and such. But it allows you to look over the other side of the world, and it's like a mirror. So yes, it could get you anywhere.
So when you came aboard for these programs, which was many years ago, they were already established mind control programs, and you just came along to, help with research and development, pretty much, right?
That's what it turned out to be. Yes, that's correct. I get blamed that I was the sole inventor of all of this. That's a ridiculous statement.
Right.
But,
well, I can vouch for this. I've been a TI since '83, 84.
Yeah,
and Duncan
I wasn't even in
this.
school that year.
He was nowhere near that.
Yeah, but I hear it on media all the time, and I kind of joke about it. Yeah. Okay. Jesse Ventura, I think, said I was the sole inventor of the mastermind. There are thousands of scientists that work on this, but the trickery that they do to us is we think we're working on the cutting edge, and that's what a scientist loves, cutting edge science. But they trick us into thinking we're doing something good for humanity, that we're not building nuclear weapons or bombs. But that's just not the truth. We've actually been involved in building something far worse than a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, and as someone who's a victim, I can tell you this technology
is a torture weapon to death.
Well, not only a torture weapon, but Duncan, am I insane? Am I crazy for feeling like the technology lives within inside of me? Because it seems to me that whatever people think the soul is nothing more than frequency waves traveling through the body. And humans have found a way to perfect those frequency waves.
I can't disagree with you.
So the world, so you're trying to tell me
your very consciousness, the thing you call the soul, is information contained in the biological computing machinery of your brain. And if someone can override that, you lose your sense of soul, your sense of self.
Well, it's kind of like man versus machine. Machine always moves faster than man is capable of doing itself.
That's right. technology is evolving through mankind as a separate life form, faster than we evolve biologically. So machines will rule the world. I mean, that's a given.
Or the people who control the machines.
Or the people who control the machines, but they're flawed. So their programming may be flawed. What if they had an algorithm? We're going to try to eliminate the worst people on earth, and they have some sort of algorithm. Well, some human being had to program that. It's a flawed algorithm, and hence they may be attacking a lot of people that shouldn't be assassinated or killed. And, you know, it kind of disturbs me that, like Edward Snowden said, well, we have no more privacy. The next generation won't know privacy. Well, why is privacy important? And I'm about to do an interview with William Binney on March 10th to talk about this. Privacy is important because government is flawed. And if you get put in one of these programs and you've done nothing wrong, total innocence, then what the hell is it for? I mean, this just brings injustice to the rest of the world. So, yeah, privacy is important.
Yes, privacy is important. But when you mention these programs that people are, I guess, just forced into, these aren't programs where people are picking you up anymore, taking you to a building or somewhere like that. These are just randomly selected people, and they're being watched with satellite technology, though, right? I mean, they're being watched with it, right?
In the past, you know, the U.S. government purposely chose for a lot of their, non-consensual human experimentation programs, poor people, people that were easily discredited, and usually the black community.
Right. Like the Tuskegee experiment, for one, which was the most heinous crime. Well, until now, you know.
Until now.
Yeah, until now.
But this hasn't been revealed yet, or people don't accept it yet. This kind of no-touch torture and silent death. But yeah, I think the program has been expanded since then to include all classifications of human beings. This is worldwide. I just did an interview with a major news agency for South Korea, and they're saying it's rampant there. Russia has a huge population. China has a huge population, and these movements are getting together, and they're trying to create a large voice. Listen to us, people. Listen to us. Put down your remote control and quit watching sports. Sports doesn't matter. That's a delusion. And so they're coming together, finally in one voice. But it's a slow process. The African Americans didn't get freedom for how many years? Women couldn't even vote. So we have a long history. We wiped out the Indians, and so the government has a long track record of lying to the American people, the world population.
Sure.
And so that's why we are here. We are trying to elucidate, enlighten the rest of the population, and hopefully they care. Hopefully they'll research a little bit more and say, that could happen to my child. That could be me. And they'll do something, write their senator or whatever the motive would be.
Now, Myron May, this is something that I've somewhat experienced, but I didn't write too much about this. He complained of being burned in his seat. He felt that like his body temperature was rising. And I did write about this. It happened to me once when I was actually on the train coming to California. And they're using something I believe called like ADS, the active denial system. Can you explain how it can make you feel heat burning your skin?
There are two different methods that I know about. Active denial system is a 95 gigahertz weapon system built by Raytheon, and they have a small little packaged version, but it wouldn't be battlefield ready. But they usually mount it on a large Humvee, and it can burn you, make you feel that you're on fire 1.5 kilometers away from the vehicle. So that's out of shooting range. I mean, you can't even shoot back at this while you're being burned. And they call it a non-lethal weapon. But the U.S. Air Force Secretary, Michael Wynn, I believe was his name, said we must test this on the American people before we use it in the battlefield. And he was fired for that comment.
Now, excuse me, right beyond, you can see an office. Actually, I have two office buildings right across the street from LAX. Before I flew to wherever I'm at today, I went past there. I actually went past there because I flew out of LAX. So these people are actually sitting. People have control of this, or people are working on this. The higher ups, they're right across from LAX, man, and they're looking at us every day. We're going to work, we're going to school, we're going wherever. A lot of people wonder, how can you be a targeted individual for so long and not get away? Well, I'll tell you this. Where's the one place that we all go at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day? We're at home. All they have to do is target us at home. Once we leave home, it's easy to follow us. They follow us to work, follow us to school, follow us wherever we're going. And when it comes to the Aaron Alexis, he worked at the Naval Yard. Now, don't get it twisted. These young men here, they weren't told to go commit these shootings. A lot of people wonder, oh, is the government telling them to go do this? No, they aren't. We, as black people, I feel, after so many years of oppression, we don't have a problem with speaking out or acting out against something that is unnatural to us. We don't like being oppressed. Aaron Alexis went to the place where he thought they were doing this to him at. And it quite possibly could have been the Navy, or it could be the Air Force or some form of CIA. I don't know. Duncan can't even confirm that, because if you heard him earlier, he says it's like 20 different groups are all doing this, So we don't know exactly who's targeting us. But the fact that we're being targeted is the truth, We really hope that you guys will take into consideration that we all had normal lives. Aaron Alexis was an IT for the Navy. Myron May was a young man who was an assistant trial attorney. Me, myself, a lot of you might not know about me, but I made about $2 million before I was 30. And the way I did it, was through internet companies. And the way my money was taken from me was in such an unbelievable way. I would hear the voice of the person speaking to me, and they would inflict pain. And they would tell me, if you want us to make the pain stop, this is how you have to go spend your money. So what would you do? Do you really think that you can deal with the pain? My threshold for pain isn't that high. Do you know anyone who can possibly, go through this kind of shit?
No. They have a program called SEER that they make some of the really tough military guys go through, waterboarding, and in case they're captured and they have secrets, to try to toughen them up. But no, this is torture, and I don't care if they call it no-touch torture, whatever euphemisms the U.S. government and their legal staff have come up with. This is the greatest atrocity and crime against humanity that we have known since Hitler.
Oh my gosh. Did you guys just hear that? This is a guy who's helped develop the technology, and believe it or not, he doesn't even know how advanced the technology was before he came aboard. Am I correct with saying that?
That's right.
So he could actually be someone who they're using as like as a figurehead, like, hey, you're the guy who we're gonna, put out into the world to let them know that this is going on, and you don't even know that we've had most of the technology developed before you were hired. With that being said, I'm not saying that we can't trust our government. What I'm saying is we should really trust in the American people who are trying to tell you that we're being tortured. And not only is this American, Duncan's admitting that this is worldwide.
This is worldwide.
And earlier,
every country,
everyone is complaining of being a targeted individual, and this is being targeted by someone who we can't fight or see. But this is the way I described it in my book, is that this is not like a schoolyard bully that you can fight, choose to fight or run away. This is something you can't get away from. Can you kind of explain how these particular frequency waves are able to go through buildings, and like there's really isn't any, there's no protection from this?
So, that's a good question. Are there methods that you can use to cope? And some TIs have found a way to reduce a lot of the effects, but you're still being tortured. And you still have to go to work, as you said, and go home. And you're creating your own prison with any sort of defenses you come up with. What kind of frustration would this cause? Would this cause a Myron May effect, that you need your message out and make people ask questions?
Well, actually, for Myron May or someone like me in my situation, the fact that we try everything and there's no physical material that we can find that can protect us from these extreme low frequency waves, causes the stress of I've worked all my life to have a substantial quality life.
Yeah.
And these people are torturing me, and there isn't any help. People are telling me I'm crazy everywhere I go. They give us pills. Pills aren't helping, And my only thing is this, and this is something we'll never know, okay? We'll never know the truth of any TI who gets relief from taking pills or, putting aluminum foil over their head. Is it what the TI is doing, or is it something that I know to be true? And I'll tell you this, even if he's not going to, admit it for us, I'll tell you guys like this. There's only relief when the person who is torturing us allows us relief, okay? I'm not going to sit up here and try to tell you guys, hey, you know what, wrap aluminum foil over your head, go take all those pills, because in the first place, why in the hell would you have to take pills if you don't have a genetic disorder, you don't have a mental illness? So the pills that you're taking, you're killing your brain cells of what they're doing to you. And if the human brain can only go, let's say, 100 miles per hour, but this technology that people who developed it before Duncan was even, on staff, this technology goes 300 or 400 miles per hour, and they're mimicking your same brain waves, your same frequency.
Speed of light.
Speed of light?
Yeah.
Wow, the speed of light. Hey, I can't move at the speed of light. Who am I, Muhammad Ali? Let me cut the light off, see if I can hop in bed before the light's off. You know what I mean? That kind of shit. So, when TIs are searching for relief, the last thing that they want to hear is, oh man, go take these pills, go hide under a rock, go.
It doesn't. So the pills may not help them, and that's
Right.
how they know they're a
target
true
individual. Yes.
TI.
Yes.
But sometimes you have to do that to appease the family members and friends around you.
Exactly.
They will ask you, I think you might be having a mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Would you please take these pills, go see a shrink and stuff? And, I personally, I think you should do it to maintain your friendships and your family relationships, but they're not going to help, and that's another way you can tell if you're a true TI. I usually ask people, what are the voices telling you? And that's how I classify my research, because they use these scripts. They use the same scripts on almost all TIs, and so you can hear what they're telling the individual. Go do this, go do that, we're going to kill your family, we're going to kill you. And they just try to ramp up your terror level. And it's domestic terrorism, but it's part of trauma-based conditioning.
So, speaking of I'm glad you brought that up, as far as we're going to kill your family, we're going to do this, because in my experiences, the one time that I didn't do what they said, and guys, please don't laugh about this and don't judge me, but they tell me things like, hey, if you don't masturbate, we're going to murder your grandmother. I know it sounds crazy, man, and I don't know who the hell want to see me masturbate.
I know, it's just the control. They just want to see, will you obey?
But
will you obey?
But listen to this. The first time, and I promise you guys this, the first time that I didn't do what I was told, I went upstairs, and my grandmother, she's in a wheelchair, she has a pacemaker, she's 82 years old. Within minutes, because I didn't masturbate, my grandmother was slumped over in a wheelchair. I have to pick her up, put her on the toilet, because she feels that she's kind of constipated and she thinks that it's gas. And I know that they have something called EMPs. Where they, the microwave weapons where they can.
Well, the microwave weapons can cause heart attacks, and people that have some sort of defect in their heart, and can cause strokes. And this was written about by the U.S. Air Force, talking about the Russians are developing this. We're way ahead of them. So, it's all a scam just so they can get more money from Congress.
Yeah.
But Dr. Fred Bell, after he did an interview with Joseph Ventura, dropped dead 24 hours later from a heart attack. And, this has been written about. This is actually old news. 1970s, I found in Russian literature, talk about you can spook or scare someone to death. So it's very old technology in terms of their tactics.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I'm sorry. I'm glad you explained that, because now people know that I'm not crazy about what they were capable of doing. So my grandmother, I pick her up off the toilet, I put her back in a wheelchair. We had to use her life alert. She actually went to the hospital, and as she's going to the hospital, I heard the person speaking to me says, I told you, if you didn't masturbate, what I was going to do. So there goes the whole theory of, these are idle threats. Now I am totally at the mercy and the control of verbal control. And this isn't being affected on me. There have been times where I've been in the same room as my brother, and I've seen, I've heard the person speaking to me says, watch your brother hold his heart, or watch your brother hold his head. And these people are complaining of headaches, and they're also complaining of heart pain. So when I'm told to do something, if I don't do something, my family's going to be hurt. I know that this is real, even if my family doesn't know this is real. So now I'm forced to do whatever I'm told to do. And I am so grateful. I have not been told to go out and harm anyone or do anything to someone. But there are these stupid things that they would force me to do. And, Duncan, I'm glad that you were able to explain that, yes, they do have the technology that can cause heart attacks. Also, how are they capable of forcing someone not to be able to feel the muscles in their hand? I mean, I went to squeeze, those little things that those little...
Yeah, it's stress balls.
Yeah. I went to try to squeeze one, man, and I couldn't even, my hand would not squeeze at all. Like, it just wouldn't, what is that? Can you explain that?
No, that's a capability that I haven't studied in the TI group.
Can you just say?
All right, so Duncan, I have one more question for you, and this is probably one of the most important questions I'm going to have for you. Recently, I've experienced something that can possibly get me murdered, and this is something that throughout the years I know they've been working on. I don't know if it took 30 years for them to finally get me, to be able to do exactly what I'm about to try to explain, but forced speech. I mean, I could be literally sitting here having a conversation with you, and it's not me talking. Literally I am saying word for word, verbatim, not what I'm being told, but what I feel is going through me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I could be trying to tell you, Duncan, hey, do you see that cute girl over there? Next thing you know, I'm talking about the guy down the street is,
Yeah, so the way you experience it would be, I guess, like Tourette's. Almost like you can't control what is coming out of your mouth, and it's not what's in your thought processes, but you're speaking somebody else's verbiage. And yes, it does take a long time for that usually to occur, because remember, your brain's been mapped out. Mm-hmm. And so they've mapped out your audio cortex, you're cloned with another person or a machine, and so pretty soon the brain will bypass your cerebral cortex and be able to shoot out vocabulary that you have no intention of saying. And it's, I hate to say it, it's pretty common with most TIs.
So
research.
I'm not the only TI who's
No, not even close. No, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. This is not new, not a new phenomenon. And in fact, that's where the term forced speech came from. Is probably back in the 80s. People in the
Wait a minute. So you're saying that they've been working on forced speech since the 80s?
Yeah.
This is 2015.
I know. So you can imagine how advanced the weapon systems have become.
Now, when it comes to all of this particular type of technology that we're talking about, as far as the capabilities of it, you're saying that this is all based on ground technology and satellite technology? I mean, it's all capable of being, citizens are able to be tracked with satellite technology, and they're able to be tortured and...
I don't like to talk about the specifics of the antenna arrays.
Understand. I respect that. I don't like to talk about what I was forced to talk about.
Yeah.
So I understand. Hey.
But you won't be put in prison. I mean,
hey, you know what? And I don't want you to be put in prison. I appreciate the interview today. If you guys ever want to take a look at, get a good read, you can actually pick up my book only at my website right now. It's at www.schawareness.com, and it's Satellite Directed Energy Weaponry Terrorism, Illuminati Got Me. covers so much of my life, 30 years of experiences, horrific experiences, and it also lets you know, hey, I'm a guy who's tried, and I'm not someone who's ended up in this particular part of my life because of decisions I made. These were all forced decisions that I had no choice other than to do what I was forced to do. And with that being said, you all try to enjoy your life. And if you're not going out doing everything you can, then you're wasting valuable time. And I wish I had the time that you had.
Hey, thank you, Ty,
All right.
for inviting me to this interview.
Sure, no problem.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too. All right. Cut.